On the way this half hour, a sneak peek of this weekend's big football game showing the Tennessee Volunteers against the Gators of Florida. Bob Keslings joining us with his unique perspective on that. Also, the most famous mustache in the South. Corky Coker joining us a little bit later on as well with a preview of the upcoming Chattanooga Motor Car Festival. And what a hoot this is going to be. Also, C-Mark and John Mark, both of them joining us talking about this week's upcoming Solid Orange T-shirt giveaway. We've got all of that and more between now and the bottom of the hour. You make sure and keep it here, and let's chat.
Welcome to Let's Chat, the Tennessee Valley's premier show focusing on lifestyle and entertainment, bringing you smart shopping tips, community events, and the newest trends. Now, let's chat.
Good morning again, and thanks so much for joining us as we continue. This is Tuesday, September 20th. I'm Chip Chapman. Enough about me. I'm going to turn to our first guest. I want to spend as much time as possible with this guy right here, the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, our friend Bob Keslings. Bob, good morning.
Hey, Chip, how are you?
Doing very well. Wow, Bob Keslings, the Vols are off to a 3-0 start for the season. It's been a while since the Vols were 3-0 to kick off a brand new year, right?
Yeah, it has since 2016. The goal is to go 4-0, and to do that, you got to beat Florida. So everybody's jacked up. You know, Tennessee's ranked 11th in the country. I don't think anybody thought that Josh Heupel could get this thing turned around so quickly, but he has. So there's so much excitement. It's going to be a second straight sellout at Neyland Stadium on Saturday. So there's a big-time buzz about this game. It's a national exposure game for both teams, really. But really, it's a good sign for Tennessee to get all this recognition. Now you got to go back it up and play well against Florida.
Obviously, a lot riding on the line for both teams, Tennessee and Florida, but seemingly, at least from around here, a little bit more for Tennessee. In a nutshell, Bob, what does Tennessee have to do to stick the Gators back in the swamp?
Well, you got to. I like that. You got to keep throwing the ball the way they have with Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker's been remarkable.
Yeah.
He's thrown 187 straight passes without an interception. And that's a school record. But think about that for a second. You know, a lot of times balls are tips or they bounce off shoulder pads of the receivers, and it's a lot of times it's not the quarterback's fault. But Hendon Hooker is so accurate in his throwing and knowing exactly where he wants to throw it. And his receivers have worked so hard to get the timing down. It's kind of remarkable how this offense works. So obviously Tennessee wants to move the ball, play quickly. Florida, their offense revolves around their quarterback, Anthony Richardson. And Richardson is a guy that has he's a big, tall guy. He runs. But teams have now started to force him to throw the football, and he has not been quite as accurate doing that. So Florida had a big win in their first game against Utah. They lost to Kentucky. They struggled last week, but they won. So it's a Florida team under a new coach that's really trying to find its way. So you would think from that aspect, Tennessee would have an edge on Saturday.
I'll tell you, Bob, I have listened to you for many, many years. We'll just leave it like that. I was coming back into town this past weekend, listening to you, and ladies and gentlemen, Bob Keslings is the ultimate broadcast professional. I could hear the buzz in your voice during the second half like I don't typically hear that buzz in your voice. You were, seemingly, you were enjoying the game more than the most rabid volunteer fan there was, and that is a sincere compliment. I think you were having a ball.
Yeah, Pat Ryan and I enjoyed that game. And, you know, one thing that was great about it, you know, they had 6 different guys score touchdowns in the game, which you hardly ever see that in a football game. You saw Hendon Hooker play great. Joe Milton came off the bench and threw 2 of the most prettiest touchdown passes I've ever seen. So it's a fun team to watch. I mean, it's a fun team to cover because the fact that they're so explosive on offense. They're unique in their style, how they play, spread you out, and just make big plays all over the field. So it's a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
You know, Florida, the one thing, Chip, about Florida does have great athletes.
Sure.
And so you know that this is a game that both teams get up for. And a lot of times in this game, down through the years, the team that's favored doesn't win. It's been a strange series. Florida's had the upper hand. So even though Tennessee's favored in the game, they still have to go out and play a really good football game to beat Florida.
Even going back to the days of Coach Johnny Majors, one of the things he always preached was don't ever underestimate your opponents, especially Florida. So, Bob,
Right.
one final question here for you. This is going to be, as you said, another sellout in Knoxville. What's the importance of that home field advantage, in your opinion, for Tennessee?
Well, I think one thing, this will be Anthony Richardson, the Florida quarterback's first true SEC road game to start. And I think the noise level is going to really disrupt their offense. At least you hope it will. And so he's got to handle that crowd noise. He's got to be able to communicate. And when you got a quarterback that's still trying to get some traction and figure out what his strengths are in a game like this, I think that's a big advantage. So we want all the Tennessee, they're going to checker Neyland. So it'll be orange and white everywhere. So be loud and make things tough on the Gators Saturday.
Absolutely. Bob Keslings, my friend, always a pleasure. By the way, our mutual friends over at KZ106 will be airing the game on the radio. It is, of course, our CBS Game of the Week right here on News 12 at 3:30. And Bob Keslings, I'll be listening to you again this weekend. Thank you for your time.
Always, Chip. Thank you.
We'll talk to you here in a few weeks, and go Big Orange. Speaking of Big Orange, a couple of the biggest Vol fans anywhere, actually 1, 2, 3 or 4 of them are in the house, and they're all going to be joining us coming up. Corky Coker straight ahead talking about the upcoming Chattanooga Motor Car Festival when we come back on Let's Chat.